Hello, and welcome to Starside Cafe. I almost said Starside Chat, but today we're taking a look. We're doing another Blindspotting episode. It's been a while. Joining me is Aaron Capo.
Hello.
And I'm Zach Owens. And today we're looking at a game called Horizon Chase Turbo. I keep wanting to accidentally call it Turbo Chase because that seems to make more sense in my head. But so this... We don't do a lot of racing games or talk about a lot of racing games because I don't think either of us play a lot of them.
No,
but
I don't.
This one caught my eye because of the fact that it's like a retro, like arcade style racer that's like very stylized, and it's in like the it's just sort of a modern take on that. And it like the developers of it's a Brazilian development team called Akiris, I think, game studio. And they specifically talk about games like from the 80s and 90s, like Outrun, Lotus Turbo Challenge, and Top Gear as like inspirations for this game. And so it has like this the old style where like the background is kind of like this stylized thing that's just sort of static in the background, and then like the track itself just sort of turns. It's very windy. So the reason why I started playing this game in the first place is because I saw it and I was like, oh, this looks exactly like the type of racing game I played back in the 90s. So
yeah, I like the aesthetic of it. Especially like in the beginning when you were going around the globe, it was kind of low poly.
Yeah.
And this whole aesthetic is this 90s aesthetic is really working for me.
Yeah, it's a very polygonal like art style that I like quite a bit, but it's also like very vibrant and colorful.
Yeah, for sure.
And there's like a lot of variety in terms of not just like the cars, but the places that you go. So like you start off in California, and there's like San Francisco and Los Angeles, and then eventually you'll go to places like India and China and Japan and places like that. And so the idea is that you'll try to get first place in all of these, but there are also like tokens to collect on each race. And if you collect all the tokens and finish in first place, you get a super trophy. And there are also like fuel pickups. So like depending on the specs of your car, you may need to worry about picking up those fuel pickups more than you might if you had like a car that is maybe more fuel efficient, but there's like trade-offs. So like the choice of which car you want to pick depends on like, do you want a car that accelerates fast and has a high top speed, but maybe it isn't very good at like handling or fuel efficiency or whatever.
Looks like we're going to Rome or Greece now.
Yeah, so, and there's also like weather effects. Like this one's, it's very rainy, and there's some, I think one of the later ones that I have in here is like very snowy.
Does that affect anything, or is it just a cool visual thing?
I think it's just a cool visual thing, and it sort of does make it a little bit harder just in terms of visibility at times. Like especially, there's one that is like kind of foggy, or it's like a sandstorm, and there's like the snow one especially that you'll see at some point gets to the point where it's not necessarily a hazard in terms of like making it hard to handle where you start sliding, but it does make it harder to see. So it's,
you know, what this reminds me of, kind of more than a regular racing game, it kind of reminds me of like an F-Zero game.
Yeah, so I actually, because I picked up the Super NES Classic, and it was on, F-Zero was on there, and that was the first time I played it, because I didn't play it when I was a kid, and I thought about that too when I first started playing this. I was like, oh, this kind of reminds me of F-Zero a little bit.
Like the way that you're kind of stuck to the ground, there's not a lot, you don't get a lot of air, even if you go over a hill. And also it's just like, especially with the things like flying past, it feels like a lot faster than regular racing games.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe it's just the camera perspective, but it does feel like you're moving very fast, and you have these like crazy turns you have to navigate and all of that. But
is there drifting? I can't tell.
No, there's not. So it's like super arcadey to the point where it's like you would expect from a 90s game. Like,
Yeah.
I guess I didn't play a lot of Super NES racing games. The racing game that this reminded me the most of when I first saw it was a game called, I think it was Ferrari Grand Prix Challenge, which was this NES game that me and my brother used to play when we were kids. And it was very similar to this, where it just had like that revolving sort of static background. And then you had these like really windy courses or whatever, but you were like in an F1 car.
I can't hear this because we're doing it over Discord, but how is the music?
The music's pretty good. It's also very like 90s inspired. So actually the developers of this game got, what is his name? I forget what his name is. They got the guy that did the music for the SNES Top Gear game. Barry Leitch, I think is his name. He's a Scottish composer. I don't know how you say his name, but he like worked on the Top Gear game. And there's like, I remember some of the music from that is fairly iconic. Even though I never played the game, I've heard the music from that game. And it was apparently super popular in Brazil. So this development team were super psyched to like have him work on the music for this. And so I think there's like one track from Top Gear at least that is also like in this game. And it comes up, I'm like, oh, I've heard this song before. And there was even like a competition, I think, at one point to do like a modern remix of that track from that game. Because I remember it popping up as like a synthwave remix track on like New Retrowave on YouTube, if you follow them. But anyway, the music's pretty good, and I really like the aesthetic of the game, and I like the variety of places that you can go to. There's also, you'll eventually unlock some other courses, or not courses, game modes. Like they have a tournament mode, which is your standard like racing mode, where it's more like you're going to complete 4 races, and if you, depending on where you finish, you get points for that, and then at the end of the race you sort of finish in the top 3 or not. So it's that type of a thing. And then there is like online and offline multiplayer as well.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, I was gonna say, if this game had came out when I was a kid, like, because I was playing it on Switch, but you can get it on PS4, Xbox, and PC. And yeah, I totally, like, we would have played this a ton when I was a kid in split screen. So yeah, I don't know. It's you unlock cars at a pretty regular clip, so it feels like you're kind of constantly being rewarded for completing races as well, which is
what is
pretty
the
cool.
craziest car you can unlock?
So all the cars are obviously based on like real world models, but they're called something else because they probably don't have the licenses. But they have like they have some like crazy supercars that look like Lamborghinis and stuff like that. But then they also have like weird cars that are like some service truck that has like a ladder on the back, and you're just like, how is that keeping up with this other like supercar or whatever? But it's all just like super arcadey stuff, so it's fine.
What about the courses? Are there any like crazy courses where you're like doing loops or like loop-to-loops or anything?
There's not. I kind of wish there was, actually, now that you mention it. But this is another thing. So in each new location you go to, there are upgrade races as well, where you're not collecting tokens on them. But if you complete the upgrade race, which is not the race I'm doing right now, but if you complete that, you get like your choice of 3 possible upgrades, and they'll like give you a bonus to your speed or acceleration or your handling or your like fuel efficiency or whatever.
Wait, so can you run out of fuel in a
You can.
race?
So, like, it depends on the car. Like, if your car is not very, like, it's bad about fuel and you don't pick up enough of those, like, orange fuel pickups during a race, you can run out of fuel and fail the race, and
That's
you'll just have to start over again. So yeah, it depends on like I've had races where I picked a car that like didn't have good fuel efficiency, and then that track that I was racing, all the fuel pickups were like super few and far between, so it was like kind of hard to get enough of them, and I missed enough of them that I ended up running out of fuel and having to start over.
Is there an overall story, or is it like straight arcade?
It's straight arcade racing. So, like, this could actually be in an arcade cabinet at, like, a movie theater or a restaurant or something. The way...
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, where, like, you remember Cruisin' World? That was, that was probably my favorite racing game on the Nintendo 64 back in the 90s. I used to play it with my siblings all the time. And it was cool because, like, you could go to, like, a restaurant or the movie theater or, like, an arcade, and they would have big cabinets of those where you could sit in the chair and drive around. But then I would be able to go home and still be able to play it. And that game was super arcadey as well. I can definitely see this game being in, like, an arcade cabinet like that. And that would be super cool. But yeah, the controls are like super responsive as well. I should actually say this game was originally released in 2015 on iOS and Android as Horizon Chase World Tour. And they revamped it and ported it to PC and consoles as Horizon Chase Turbo. And there was like some new tracks, new cars, and like the addition of offline and online like multiplayer, which is but you can actually go play like the first 3 races I think on mobile for free.
Crazy.
But otherwise like the game is like $20, but it's like a lot of game for $20.
Have you unlocked everything?
No, not yet. I haven't finished World Tour. And well, part of it is also like right now I'm clearing everything with relative ease, where I'm like collecting all the tokens and finishing in first. But there are definitely some races and some like locations where the races are like super tough, and you can't quite end in first unless you either get that next car upgrade or you just get a car that has some better specs than the ones that you've been using. So it's a little bit like trying to perfect a run of like some sort of like puzzle platformer, where you're like, if you collect all the things as you go and you finish with like a good time or whatever, you get like a perfect rating or whatever. So you'll just like keep replaying it over and over again until you actually do that. And so you can get a lot of playtime out of just like trying to complete everything or every race like perfectly. And then there's actually a lot more races than I thought there was going to be. I forget the number. I think they said it was like around 70 or more. But yeah, it's a lot, and I like the aesthetic of these, and they get more complicated as they go. So these are the ones that I just unlocked, and I think this is actually the first time I've done these races in Japan.
Yeah, I really like the way this looks.
What was the last racing game you played?
Man, I don't even... The one I got the most into was also on N64. It was Beetle Adventure Racing. Did you ever play that?
Yeah, I remember that game. I never owned it, but my friend had it when we played it a lot.
I loved like doing all the shortcuts in that game, but that might be the last one. I got Mario Kart for the Switch when that came out as just like something to play with friends, but yeah, I'm not like super hardcore into racing games for the most part.
Yeah, I'm not either. In fact, I think before I started playing this game, I hadn't played a racing game that wasn't Mario Kart since probably the original Xbox.
Yeah.
Like the first Burnout game, I think, was probably the last racing game I'd actually played.
I mean, when I got a 360, it came with like a 2-pack of Forza and I think like Marvel, some kind of sort of Marvel game. And I never even unwrapped that. I never even put it in my Xbox.
Yeah, I think when I got my maybe it wasn't my original Xbox. I don't remember if it was original Xbox or 360, but I got some sort of racing game packaged in with it, and I think it was Forza. And yeah, I didn't. I think I tried it once, and I was like, nope. And I took it and sold it at like GameStop or something.
Man, I remember like the last car game that I was super interested in. I don't know the name of, but I saw a tech demo or like an alpha footage of it, and it was like a car horror game where it was like very dark and mysterious, and you were being chased by like an evil car, and it was all from first person perspective. I don't know what that was called, and that was like maybe a year ago that I saw that, but that also wasn't really a racing game. Mm-hmm. I guess what I'm saying is I'm not super into car games.
Yeah, me neither, but this one it's probably the best racing game that nobody's talking about right now.
Can you play it by like holding your Switch and like turning it with the gyros, like Joy-Con steering?
I wouldn't want to do that, but I don't think that's an option.
Can you play with one Joy-Con?
Probably. I feel like that's a configuration you can do with most games on Switch. Mm-hmm. But like the control scheme's certainly simple enough that you should be able to do that.
Yeah.
Because like if you wanted to play split screen with a friend or something, you could just like, you could probably just pass a Joy-Con and both of you play split screen with like one Joy-Con. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't know. I don't have a whole lot else to say about it. I think it's a really good racing game, and it took a lot to get me to actually play a racing game because I don't play a lot of them. But the fact that this was like very nostalgic, like 90s style, like SNES racing arcade games, I was super into the aesthetic of it, so I don't know. I think more people should be talking about this game. I know it came out last year, but it's surprising to me that like none of the major outlets were talking about it. So
yeah, it seems like a perfect Switch game.
It is. It's when I weighed whether I wanted to get this on like Steam or Switch, like I don't know if maybe the Switch is just like my favorite platform to get games on anyway, but it's definitely the type of a game that you could pick up and do like a race or two and then like put it down again, which is like, that's like the mobile thing, right? Like if it passes the mobile test, if you can get a quick play session in over like a couple of minutes and then put it down again. And I guess that makes sense that because this game started as like a phone game and then eventually was like, I guess, remastered and ported to consoles. So I don't know. It works. I don't know that the phone game version of this has been updated to have all the stuff that this version of the game has, but I like it. So consider yourself not blind on this game anymore.
I'm unblinded, Zach.
You are unblinded. Well, thank you for joining us. Let us know what you thought of Horizon Chase Turbo, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Catch you on the flip side.